Luke 12:13 through 21. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to them, "Friend, who set me to be the judge or the arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves but are not rich toward God." The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Let's just take a moment to breathe that in. Oh, that was lovely. Thank you so much. And the oboe was such a nice touch. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. All right. So, in Luke 12:13 to 21, which we just heard, Jesus presents a story about a man who obtained a large harvest and decided to construct huge storage facilities instead of distributing his wealth. He put it aside untouchable. And the man's fatal error was not in his receiving this abundance. The land provided generously for him, that is a good thing. His error was from his reaction to the bounty. He hoarded what he could have offered to this circle of reciprocity we heard about in the kids' message. He hoarded what he could have trusted into the practice of giving and receiving. And God said to this error, "This very night your life will be demanded from you, and then who will get what you've prepared for yourself?" Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that, "This very night your life will be demanded from you," I think he's about to die. That's my first take on that verse. But maybe it isn't just a warning about the rich fool, as he was called, dying that night. Maybe it could be a warning for us about how do we look at the prospect of our security evaporating overnight. Maybe it's about the things he figures are impenetrable fortresses for safekeeping his wealth suddenly collapsing. In that case, taking away his reliance on his ability to provide more than enough for himself in the moment, that he's protecting his future securities, in this case, taking that away is very much like demanding his very life from him. Easy come, easy go is not in his vocabulary. So take away his assurances, and what does he have to live for? But it doesn't have to be that way up here. Last week, we studied how creation in its most basic operation functions as a gift economy. And it's true, we have a hand in stewarding it, certainly. We're called to that in Genesis. But we don't have full control of how those resources flow and how they are expended in the world. And if we set aside that spiritual principle that tells us abundance is meant to be shared, then we kind of eliminate ourselves from the equation, not only of the giving, but also of receiving in its best form, in its natural and mutually beneficial form. Last week, we also considered the ways that seeing the world as a gift, it transforms our relationship with creation itself in a lovely way. We heard how lovely it can be just now. So with that as background this week, we continue exploring this idea of examining what we do with creation's gifts. Now, once we let ourselves start to see things around us as gifts, then things within us start to change a little bit. Have you ever heard the saying, "Don't look a gift horse in the mouth"? Anybody heard that saying? Do you know where that comes from? It comes from the days when everybody had horses. That was transportation for them. And people would check a horse's teeth because the teeth were the first place to see what the horse's age was and what its value was. And if that horse was a gift, if you go straight to inspecting the teeth, rude. So evaluating whether gifts are worthy of us and then hoarding them when they are and casting them off when they're not, it's not a new concern. It's been around for a while. So, let's say we have a stable full of horses. Let's pretend a little bit, follow through those things, yes? Just because it's a gift doesn't mean we don't do that. And then here comes God, and God says, hey, an idea for you. Let's not bother with checking the teeth. Let's just receive this horse as a gift, sight unseen, when it comes to the teeth. And even if it's old and growing feeble, why not invite underprivileged neighborhood kids to come and ride this new horse on your farm? Or find some other way to make this gift you received a blessing that goes beyond your stable. Let's get creative. Maybe you'll even pay the price of feeding this creature and keeping it comfortable for the sake of those it serves. Let's try reciprocity. Let's show gratitude. Let's pay a blessing forward. And the beauty of it is that there are bonus gifts that go with embracing this way of thinking. There are gifts of relationship, gratitude, and care. And those gifts, they grow in strength as they move out through a community. Unlike just simple material goods, which tend to decrease in value over time. The intangible abundance grows in size when it is shared with others. That part does not shrink. Christ says, store up your riches in heaven for a reason. Intangible abundance stored up in heaven has an incredible shelf life. Even indigenous wisdom that predates Christian influence emphasizes this principle. For the indigenous, giving back as much as we take just makes sense in the long run. Sharing what we have just makes sense too. There is a story from indigenous populations that, or a saying, I guess, that goes like this. I, as a hunter, will store my extra when asked to bless the meal, starts with the seed being planted in the ground and blesses every step along the way of those people who brought this steaming, wonderful goodness in front of you. Have we heard those prayers? Yes, of course we have. And it is good sometimes to think about the process, to bless it occasionally. But we just don't have to live into it very much anymore. We don't live that reciprocity out of necessity. So we're missing that thing that helps us to know we are not as self-sufficient as we would like to think. Can I get to the grocery store? Well, then I'm good, So how might we intentionally practice this reciprocity now, since it's not an automatic? The receiving and giving and receiving again and giving again, how could we invest ourselves in that? One of the areas where we are more sensitive to the critical nature of this circle that Deborah told us about, the circle of life, has to do with the honeybee population worldwide. As that population diminishes, we see a significant source of pollination disappear, and pollination matters. It's what takes those flowers on our cucumber plants and our tomato plants and our watermelon plants and our squash plants and turns those flowers into fruits and vegetables. Do we have any gardeners here? Gardeners for like veggies and, yeah. Have you ever gone to the length of hand pollinating plants? I have. I was not willing to give up my squash when the insects decided to stop visiting. So you go out and you take some pollen on your finger and you bzzz, and then you put some pollen on another plant flower, and then you get a squash. But what if we took care of the bees instead? What if we let that reciprocity show up as us providing ideal conditions for the bees and then receive their honey as gift? And the next year, we take care of the bees again and we receive the honey as gift. And we look out over our flowers or over our plants and we see them buzzing away, busily doing the work of pollinating while we sit there and drink a glass of tea. What might that be like? Well, let's watch and see.
Bees are one of the most interesting life forms that we have. It's just been fascinating for me to learn about bees and then now to be a beekeeper. We have a deficit of bees in the country. Many orchards have to bring in hives to pollinate just because there aren't enough. Now, we're probably not making much of a dent, but this is sort of a good way of educating people in the church about our bee problems, not only in the United States, but around the world, and how important it is for us to care for bees. You know, our plan is to sell the honey at our cathedral shop, and the money will go to being able to purchase additional hives and to make this a self-sustaining program. But if we make any profit beyond that, to go to support other, beekeeping projects in disadvantaged communities. I was really inspired and started thinking about bees because of my work with Episcopal Relief and Development. I had the privilege of traveling to Kenya a number of years ago and met with a group of women who had a cooperative. They had all sorts of different businesses, but they kept bees, and they had a whole beekeeping company, and they would take their jars of honey to the local market. And I think just the opportunity to be in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Christ and with people throughout the world, I think is an important thing. And I hope that through this at St. Mark's and in the Diocese of Olympia, it can shine a spotlight on the world and what we're doing to help us steward our resources and care for creation.
The beautiful thing that I can say that person can also say about their church and their hives on the roof, and not every church can, is that we are already invested this way. With our Creation Keepers efforts, with our Wild Church worship, we are already invested in acknowledging that these are important matters and that we as a church want to tend to them. No matter how creatively we work to support creation and receive creation's support, we can certainly at least reflect on the far-reaching potential of our choices. He talked about recognizing that it was a worldwide concern and a worldwide initiative. There's far-reaching potential. But when we hoard creation's bounty instead of sharing and stewarding, we interrupt that cycle. We can consider how good it feels in our hearts to bless one another and bless the world in love and gratitude and trust when we stop feeling like we must squirrel away what we have in fear. Most of all, we can choose to remember that God's plan for us involves mutuality and reciprocity. And we can inform ourselves about that far-reaching impact of being kind and sharing what we have and wanting good things for others, because it's good for our souls. Now, I'm going to tell you not a dad joke, but a grandpa joke to close today. This is one my grandfather told me when I was a child. He had this joke he would tell when he would see something that someone had that he wanted, like a car or a boat or a camper or whatever. And he would say, "Gee, wish I had that." And they had a better one. You see how that keeps you from being dinged as covetous of your neighbor's goods? But it also shows a recognition that wanting good things for others, along with wanting good things for ourselves, that want of shared abundance is itself a gift that not everyone has. But we can certainly ask for it. We can ask to be open-handed with our abundance and laugh and wish good things and not just live clenched up and in fear. So I ask you to take my grandpa's challenge this week. If you see someone has something you really want, let yourself own the fact that you want it, but wish something better for them. And see if that doesn't adjust something inside of you in a beautiful way.